I want you to think about that. When you get to the place in your life, when you meet Jesus, you're ready to humble yourself before something that's so beyond you. Yeah, it might look like a little baby in there, but there's a lot more. You know? The true meaning of Christmas. These magi coming before Jesus, they worship him. They bow down. And then they give. Christmas is not about just what God did for us, but our response to what he did for us. Christianity ultimately is summed up in that. You know, Christmas time is a time for God to remind us that God sent his Son in the world to give us peace. But it should also remind us as Christians of what our response is to that. These magi, their response was they wanted to do something. Now, the interesting thing about it, they could not have given their way into finding Jesus. They could have not been good enough to find Jesus. They could not have been smart enough. All they knew is that there was going to be a star, and they followed that star. And once they found him, see, the thing is, it's not about how you got there. It's not about, where you're at now. It's about being able to say, okay, God, I know what you've given me. I know what this means. Now I'm ready to give of myself. Christmas is about giving. Not just at Christmas time, but all year. About us doing what we can to give what God has given us. How do we deface Christmas? By forgetting. How do we deface Christmas? By not responding the way that God wants us to. By not actually doing something with what God's given us. I was looking up, and I'm finishing up with this. Hopefully that was long enough, but because I got a really cool story to finish up with. I was looking. You gotta do this week. Go on the internet and search, is Christmas evil? I don't know. I think about these things. I love searching up things. I did it on Halloween. I had to do it on Christmas. And I found this lovely website that started out with a big picture of Santa being hung on the cross. I was like, whoa, this is going to be interesting. Let's read this. Is it a Christmas about Santa or about Satan? That was the way it titled it, And then, about switching the letters of Santa around and all that. It's funny. But, from some weirdo, I don't know. Maybe he had a bad time at Christmas. Maybe he asked for something and never got it. Who knows? I don't know why he's so mad at Christmas. But he's mad. Some people say that Christmas, and I like the word, I think the Seventh-day Adventists use the word sun worshipers, because we worship on Sunday, so we're sun worshipers. The holiday was a pagan holiday, actually based upon sun worshipers. And I go, I want to find out where that came from, And I'm going to tell you a story at the end that is going to blow you away where that came from. But Christmas is just the sun worshipers worshiping their sun God. That's basically what we're doing. It's just stupid, Was it December 25th? I don't know. I don't really care. The flocks wouldn't have been in because of the rainy season. I don't know if it's rainy there or not. I don't think it is. Actually, I think their seasons are switched with ours, so I don't know. It could be like summertime over there in December. Who knows? Look at it now. It's freezing cold. Last year, it was still like in the 70s at this time. Who knows what was going on? Was it December 25th? I don't know. The church decided it. We celebrated it that way. That's great. It's not about the day. It's about that we're celebrating Jesus. It's just like going to church. It's not about the day you go to church. It's about celebrating Jesus. Okay. And I thought it's interesting that people get so caught up on all these little things and want to tell you about the pagan rituals that go along with these little things. And, it's funny. You ask Josiah. You can ask him after church. Say, why do we have a Christmas tree? You know what he'll tell you? He'll say the Christmas tree represents Jesus. And that all the ornaments are all pieces of our life that we hang upon it. Because we remember those things. All these different Christmases that we got to experience with Jesus. Come on. How many, how can you say, oh, well, that's based upon a pagan ritual? It doesn't have to be. We sit at a table when we eat. Pagans, back in the old days, they used to want to sit in tables, and I read this story about this, where they wanted to be seated higher than all the poor people because they felt the gods looked upon them better. There you go. So what do? Do we all sit on our butts when we eat because we want to be more like Jesus? No. Jesus, according to the Jesus movie, they showed him making a chair in that movie, didn't they? What was that? What was the one where he was making the chair and he goes, people would sit down? The Passion. See? Jesus invented chairs. But you know what I'm saying? When people get into that, so what? That's how we celebrate. That's how we celebrate. Santa Claus. Santa Claus. Santa Claus, actually the name Santa Claus is because English people have a problem with saying names properly. It's St. Nicholas. But when you say it the right way, the actual, the way that it was said, St. Nicholas, it sounds like Santa Claus. So what? It's actually a story about St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas was an amazing saint. He gave. He gave everything he had. He was a very wealthy man. And he died wealthy because he gave. That's what the story was about. He'd go into these people's houses and throw them gold through their window. The whole story of the person that wanted to get married, but they couldn't get married. And God wanted the person to get married, so he sent St. Nicholas to go throw some gold in the person's window so they can pay for the dowry so they can get married. I mean, it's, that's amazing. That's what Christmas, Santa Claus, nothing wrong with that. I tell my kids, you pray to Jesus and Jesus sends, Santa Claus to bring you presents. There's nothing wrong with that, But the thing I thought was interesting out of all the different traditions of Christmas is mistletoe. You ever think about mistletoe? Mistletoe, right? You guys don't know what that is. I wanted to have some so I can use an illustrated sermon. You have some. I should have told you to bring it.
I didn't know.
But why do you kiss somebody when you stand under mistletoe? How the heck does that, where did that come from? And, and that's what kind of got me thinking about this. And this is actually a tradition of the sun worshipers. So this is exactly for us who celebrate Christmas and go to church on Sunday. The story actually starts, the idea of mistletoe, the tradition of mistletoe starts, if you know anything about Norse mythology, you know who some of these people are. If you don't, just smile and act like you know what I'm talking about. There was a guy named Balder. Balder was actually considered the sun god. And, people, there was, the winter god. And his mom was the winter god, Frigga. Frigga, I guess. Frigga actually is an Esper on Final Fantasy. I just thought about that. Anyways, but so she was really nervous because Balder has this dream that something was going to kill him and bring an eternal winter onto the earth. And so she was so frightened, so she got up and went to all the different plants, all the different animals, and made deals with them, during the springtime and said, please don't kill my son and I'll take care of you. Okay, fine. So they made a deal and you don't worry about it. Well, Loki was an evil god, and he was very deceptive and manipulative, and he knew that there was one plant she didn't catch. It was mistletoe. And so he went to his blind brother, and who, basically, because he didn't want to do it himself, and tricked his blind brother into shooting an arrow made of mistletoe at Balder. And when the arrow hit him, it poisoned him, and he died. Because it was the only plant that she did not catch when she went through and made deals with all these different things, because it only grows off trees and it grows in the winter. Everyone was upset because the sun, blackened and the whole world went into winter, and everybody was mad, and they all cried and were upset and trying to find a way to bring Balder back to life. But she cried, and when she cried, the tears turned into these berries on the mistletoe. And eventually, because of her deep love for her son, he came back to life. Interestingly enough, 3 days later.